welcome to the University of Rhode Island Computer Science and Statistics Department. In today's lecture, we are going to go over how to properly install and set up Windows Server 2012. Okay, and we're going to also talk about how to set up DNS and a DHCP pool of IPs using your Windows Server. Right. So one of the beautiful things that you all have access to at URI is what's known as the Microsoft ImagineX store. So by using the Microsoft ImagineX store, you can actually log into your URI, your Sakai site, and you can click on servers. And under servers, you'll have access and the ability to download Windows Server 2012 R2. So this is the version of Windows that we're going to be using to configure and test this week in our assignment. So how do we set up Windows Server 2012? You want to make sure you have your VMware workstation up and running. And then we're going to go through the steps of how to set up and configure this system. So to set up your Windows Server 2012, once you've utilized the website and you've downloaded your Windows Server 2012, you're going to have an ISO. From there, you're going to open up your VMware workstation. You're going to go to File, New Virtual Machine, and then we are going to do what's known as a typical install. Okay, and then we're going to click Next. From here, we're going to specify where our server is going to be. Currently, it's identifying my Linux server, which is not what I need to use. So I'm going to browse, and I am going to find my Windows server. So this is the Windows Server ISO that I just downloaded. So I'm going to point to the disk image, and I'm going to click Open. And by default, VMware is going to detect that I've selected a Windows Server 2012. Then I'm going to click Next. It's going to ask me for a product key, which I will put at a later time. Then I'm going to configure and set up a password for my server. Okay. From here, I am going to have a list of different versions of the server that I can download. I can download the Windows Server 2012 Data Center, which will give me a GUI and access to the PowerShell and command line and all that the data center has to offer. I can download the data center core, which will only give me the GUI which will only give me the command line and the PowerShell, not the GUI. I can download the Windows Server Standard, which will just give me the standard typical uses of a server, or I can download the Windows Server 2012 Standard Core. Given that this is a lesson to learn how to use the server, I'm only going to do the Windows Server 2012 Standard, not the core. Make sure you select Standard. From here, I'm going to click Next. It's going to say I need to enter a product key, and I'm going to say yes, I would like to continue because I'm going to enter that at a different time. Then it's going to ask you which location would you like this server to be stored on. You could leave the defaults based on what you have for your server. So I'm going to leave my defaults the way that it is. Then we're going to click Next. It's going to ask how much gigabyte would you like to add to it. In my case, it's saying that it needs 60 gigabytes. That's the default recommended size in order for it to function and work properly. I'm going to leave the default, and I'm going to store this as a single virtual disk file. I'm actually going to change the location because my computer is running out of space. So I'm going to put it in this folder here, just so I can have enough space. That's why I made that change. You guys can leave it as the default. I'm going to keep it as the 60 gig. I'm going to click Next. And then I'm going to have a list of all the configurations that I just did. I can go to Customize Hardware if I wanted to customize a few things. Right now, the memory size is 2 gig, which I'm going to leave as the default. It's using one processor. It has a network adapter of NAT. I'm going to leave all of these the way that they are. And then I'm going to click Finish. My server will then load its ISO files into my VM and go through the process and the steps for me to configure and set up my server. So the installation process is going to begin. Okay. So what you noticed first here was the blue screen, the little blue screen, which is the Windows icon or logo that comes up, letting you know that Windows Server is being installed on your machine. Then it's going to say setup is starting. It's going to take a little while. You're going to get the little loading sign, and then you're going to get a Windows setup um, window similar to what I have here, where files are going to be copied and the installation process is going to begin. As the installation process happens, you're going to realize that Windows is going to get all the files ready. It's going to start all of its features. It's going to automatically update to give you all the latest features. And then it's going to finish its installations to allow you full access to the server. You will get a window that looks like the following, and it's going to ask you to log in. So I'm going to put in my username and password to log into my Windows server. So once my server launches, my server manager by default is going to be the first thing that's going to pop up. So my server manager is going to give me access to the dashboard. I'm going to see a dashboard on the left-hand side of my screen. I'm going to see all of my local servers, and then I can view all servers that I have access to. Okay. And I'm going to minimize this for now because I don't really have a need for it. If I need to go back to it, I can simply click on the little suitcase you see at the bottom. If I click on the PowerShell, the Windows PowerShell, it will bring up a command like screen for me. Okay. I can also bring up a command line if I need to give me access to my Windows root directory as well. They both kind of do similar things, except that the PowerShell allows you to run scripts and perform remote tasks, which we're going to talk all about in our Windows server. So in this case, if I wanted to write ipconfig to see what my IP address is, I will see that currently I'm on a local domain, meaning I'm not on a domain, and everything works properly. You can do the same thing here. Right. And I'm going to notice that again, local domain, I'm not on a domain, but I'm noticing that I have an IPv4 address. So it's actually using my host machine to pull all of this information up. If I wanted to ping 8.8.8.8 to see if I can reach outside, I notice that I can on my PowerShell. I can also ping 4.4.2.2. And I'm noticing that I'm not able to ping that. I probably wrote the IP address wrong. So let's try to ping a different system. Let's try it here. Ping 4.2.2.2. I have access, but I wrote 2 instead of 4. So let's try that here instead. Let's do ping 4.2.2.2. And I am able to ping. So my server is all set, it's configured, and I'm noticing that I can reach the outside world and I have access to a lot of things, right? So I notice my PowerShell works just fine, my command line works just fine, and I can open up my server manager, or I can take a look at my dashboard to see exactly what's happening to all of my server configurations. And the GUI in the Windows Server makes it a whole lot easier to use and manage so we can understand exactly what is happening. And that is all there is to installing and setting up a Windows Server 2012 on your system.